The Witch Trials of 1692, Salem, Massachusetts. The Witches. 19 people were executed by hanging for witchcraft, and 1 man was crushed to death for refusing to stand trial. Among those executed were many well-respected members of the community, which included farmers, mothers, grandmothers, fathers, dedicated churchgoers, a constable, a tavern owner, and even a minister. In the end, over 200 people had been accused as witches and imprisoned, and among those accused were a 4-year-old girl and 2 dogs, following as a memorial to those executed. Samuel Wardwell, Margaret Scott, Wilmot Red, Anne Pudiator, Mary Parker, Alice Parker, Martha Corey, Giles Corey, John Willard, George Jacobs Sr., Martha Carrier, George Burroughs, Sarah Wild, Rebecca Nurse, Susanna Martin, Elizabeth Howe, Sarah Good, Bridget Bishop. How it all started. Some young girls fell mysteriously ill. Among the girls that fell ill in the very beginning were Betty Parris, the daughter of the minister of Salem, Reverend Samuel Parris, and Abigail Williams, who was his orphaned niece who lived with them. Mr. Parris was very concerned and called in several doctors, none of whom could give him any answers, until finally he called in Dr. William Griggs, who declared that the girls were under the spell of a witch. I know that sounds crazy to you, to be declared by a doctor to be under the spell of a witch, but back in those times, they truly believed in a second world that existed alongside our own that included witches, demons, Satan, things of that nature. So the Reverend was very scared, and he began to ask the girls who had bewitched them. Here we have a drawing of what's supposed to be one of the girls having a fit, which they describe in historical documents that the fits consisted of seizures, convulsions, twitching, and speaking in strange tongues, which means languages that nobody understands, fake languages. You may have heard that term before. Pointing fingers. After the girls were questioned about who bewitched them, and mainly those two, Betty Parris and Abigail Williams, they began to accuse people of witchcraft and of putting them under their spell. They first accused a slave named Tituba, who was kind of like their nanny. She had raised them since they were small children or infants. And then they followed that by accusing a poor mother of 2 and an elderly bedridden woman. Now, as the news spread of the illness of the girls and the cause of witchcraft, more and more young girls began to fall ill, and they too claimed to be under the spell of witchcraft and accused more and more people of witchcraft. And here, I'm innocent. Poor little Puritan woman with everybody pointing their fingers at her. The trials. During the trials, the young girls who had accused the witches testified and often went into fits and seizures in the courtroom. Sometimes they even claimed that the spirits of the accused were coming out at them and attacking them, poking them with needles, scratching them, things of that nature. Spectral evidence was allowed in the trials, and what spectral evidence is the girls' testimony of seeing the spirits of these people attacking them, and they also said they saw the spirits of some of them signing contracts with the devil, or turning into strange animals such as dogs or a bird with a human head. And most of these people who were put on trial claimed to be innocent, although there were some who confessed and then turned and started accusing other people, or confirmed, loosely using that term loosely, confirmed the accusations that some of the girls had made. In this picture, this is a scene based on actual court documents that still exist of what the courtroom looked like. Here at the bottom, you can see that there are some girls who have collapsed from what the witch is doing to them, and here is the person accused trying to claim their innocence. Now, in the end, 19 people were found guilty of witchcraft and executed by hanging. All 19 of those people professed innocence to the very end, to their very last breath. You can find, if you look online, actually quotes from many of them from their final days or from their trials. A lot of them are very touching. And one man was crushed to death for refusing to stand trial. And what that means is that he refused to plead guilty or not guilty. He just wouldn't say a word. And he was crushed by, they forced him to lay on the ground. They put a board on top of him and then stacked heavy rocks on top of it, until 2 days later he finally died from it. And the only thing he said the entire time that he was being crushed to death was more weight. There were also 2 dogs who were declared guilty of witchcraft and executed, and that was done without trial. I guess it would be kind of weird to put a dog on trial, but killing them without it is even worse. And eventually more and more people began to speak out against the witch hunt, and the remainder of the accused were eventually released from jail, although many of them were still forced to pay the fees that they incurred for being imprisoned. And here we have an adorable little witch dog. Oh, this one was not executed, thankfully. Finally, your assignment. What you are to do is to research your assigned person of interest using the internet. I will attach some links to this at the end of this video to help you get started on that. And remember that we do not use Wikipedia, and to make sure that any sources that you use that are not the ones that I've given you are reliable sources. You may also go to the library. There are several books on the Salem Witch Trials. Now, when you do your assignment, there are 4 questions. Make sure you see the 2 on the back. Try to put yourself into the shoes of that person and imagine yourself in that time period. So when you do your research, you need to make sure that you look up the beliefs of the time period, what your particular character believed, if they were for or against the witch trials, things of that nature. Now, make sure you answer the questions on the handout in full sentences, and be ready to discuss your person as well as the events of 1692 in the classroom. Here is what your handout looks like. You got that in class on Friday. And on there is your assigned person, the person that you are assigned to research. Now, within this video, if you are interested, there is also some extra credit. If you rewatch the portion with the memorial, you will find that there are 2 names missing. 2 people who were executed who are not on the list. And I'll give you one hint right off the bat. It's not the guy who was pressed to death. That was Giles Corey. So if you go through that video again and find the 2 that were not listed, and then email your answers to me before Monday's class. Actually, let me start that over. Before Monday. Then I will give you a couple of extra credit points. Now, go ahead and do your research. And remember, only credible sources. And happy hunting!